This is more on the Renault Scenic E-Tech, a family of 5 vehicles. This project, I am talking about across the file set that shows what it's about. You've got a superb vehicle in design in real life. On paper, in pictures it looks good, and in real life has a beautiful synthesis. They've landed on something here and don't waste it. So the model here is to put it across 5 vehicles is the current target in the passenger vehicle category, and this van is part of that set because you've got that the van can be switched over from a sort of cargo carrying van to a crew cab format by taking out the bulkhead in between and bolting in the seats, which there are attachments in the floor for. So that's the commercial van itself. And somebody then could buy it on the second-hand market after the company had it in their fleet for a year and a half. Then they sell it into the second-hand market, and somebody could buy themselves a bargain there. And then they could get that kit, which is really just the seats, and you take out the bulkhead, and it's made to be able to be taken out. It's made to be able to be converted this way. And this, in some markets, additionally allows for financial maneuverings to get in one category and then get a discount or get some government grant under the commercial vehicle purchase, while the owner, first or second hand, can convert it back out of the commercial format into the passenger vehicle type of format. So there can be in this kit some inner lining trims for which are sort of plug-in for the side walls if that's required, if that's really ending up suitable for making it all be a good end product for people and have the strategy be really working for them. It starts as a stripped-down commercial vehicle van internally. Not stripped down, you didn't build it up. It's part of how it's low cost, and it's built for getting the job done, workhorse. So that's one way this vehicle has relevance to the passenger vehicle category of vehicles that is the target of this project. But it's the same platform, and you can, you're getting tons of sales in the fleet vehicle area, and you've also got the purpose-built and right out of the factory configured that way passenger carrying vehicle that is in this van format. It is this van, but in the commercial passenger vehicle variant. So that's the other way. This has direct relevance to the passenger vehicle set. So the short wheelbase, and then you've got the long wheelbase for commercial reasons. And if there's any relevance to provide both, if it makes sense, we'd have to look into the details for that. For the passenger vehicle version direct out of the factory, is there some companies have a special name for that? I know Ford has the Tornado. That differentiates it from the commercial cargo carrying van. Tornado means that's indicating it's the passenger vehicle version built internally from the factory that way. So it'd be easier to have this talk through if I had a handle like that, the Tornado equivalent, differentiating it from the commercial van instead of a long explanation every time. So this is a product of, 24 hours of design work, designing up from a start vehicle, start photo of the Scenic, Renault Scenic E-Tech. So you can recognize the wheels and the front and some of the other lines from the Renault Scenic. And I've taken that start photograph and then modified it and worked in different directions for the different vehicle in product types. So look across the video set. I'll put them relatively close to each other. They're very findable on the YouTube channel. They'll be close to each other. For the set of 5 vehicles. So this one's one of the 5, but it has quite a number of dimensions to it, a massive volume of sales opportunity. Now, let's get to it. Next section, next part of this, let's just draw a line here. This is replacing the Kangoo. The Kangoo name is a weak name. We could get rid of that name. I'm playing CEO here. We're working out the future track for for the passenger vehicles for the company over the next 10 years and beyond, for many decades, styling-wise, and what sort of category are we putting ourselves into as a vehicle maker? Well, it's like having a BMW or a Mercedes in the sense of the beautiful styling and some of those core features done so very well in the internal cabin. But at the same time, we have such efficiencies that we are a volume seller. So it's then an excellent value purchase. And then we're going and getting a lot of sales with a margin of profit. And it's the volume of sales with that margin of profit, which is how we end up way ahead in profit year on year than if instead we tried to price it up and be somewhat premium in the BMW, Mercedes type of bracket, and France's version of it, and such, and then be having vehicles historically there, Renault, that are smaller than, in the smaller sort of category, quite a number of them, and quite expensive for the size of vehicle. So in its class, quite expensive, but better to go with this other strategy for the future. So it's just a really good looking vehicle. How would we do that? You've already done it. You've got the Scenic, Renault Scenic 2025 E-Tech in white, which really shows off the look. And if it results in dollar efficiencies in production, you could just put it in this white. That's the only paint it comes in. I'm just exploring that color. I'm exploring that business idea. That's not a settled position because clearly it's complex, but how much does it cost really? We know Tesla did it for a number of years to offer so many paint colors. And we are looking to have our production process be very efficient, as we've seen some companies do. And it's very smart if you don't make a mistake, if you don't sort of cannibalize any of your potential sales by doing so. And this area of paint colors being offered should be reviewed. A beautiful blue. There's so many different blues, but it's that blue. We've seen it in some vehicles, some BMW M3 or M2 at its best. Back in 2017, it comes in that blue. It's that blue. I haven't got a word for it. I need to grab some photos of it. There's a particular blue, and it can look stunning. And there's another blue that's sort of the baby blue. You've got to find a good softness with it, and you can mix some white with it. These are that one's could potentially be somewhat of a safer color, very popular. It's a really volume seller. It works for second-hand sales. It's sort of enduring. So there's so many different colors I'm just exploring for at this juncture. But amongst it, can we get dollar efficiencies by just offering it in white? If you got this vehicle and it looks spectacular in white, it really shows off its styling, it just looks great, then for the buyer, they just want a vehicle that looks great in the sense for the decision of how the color looks. And if it looks absolutely great in white, it makes sense that everybody could be there with it. They just say, well, it looks spectacular, it comes in white, the price is great, it's a superb driving machine, nothing else to talk about. Because it already looks great. If you wanted blue, you think that the blue would look better, or that it looks good in blue. What you're trying to do with the color is have it look great. If it already looks great in white, this is sort of centerpiece for the analysis and considering that direction. If we don't save any money by doing this, then don't bother doing it. Just offer a whole lot of colors. But if we save a ton of money, this would be all 5 vehicles are painted the exact same colour. These are the 5 different size vehicles. So this van is amongst it. We've got in this listing the replacement for the Megane, which will be the Scenic E-Tech look on the outside. Specifically, exactly, this is the new brand look. And what you do is you don't move away from it to any degree between any of the vehicles. It's superb, not something similar but different. No, exactly the same. Just on each of these size vehicles, it's the same face and the same all the way around the vehicle with this panel work. And that cockpit internally is so good as well. So first we'll go down to Megane, the smallest one, and then you do the Megane midlife up facelift, or just call it a new generation. But we're doing the Megane again in this model, and now it looks exactly like the Scenic E-Tech, but just a little smaller in length. And then you need to put a higher roof on it. The roof is way too low. I mean, way too low. So scrap the existing Megane, and we're putting a much higher roof on it, on that sort of length vehicle, and now we've got the Scenic E-Tech. Now, if you did that, you would be right at the top of everybody's shortlist in that vehicle size category. You need to have enough width in the vehicle, so I won't talk about that there, but make sure we've got enough width, get the width right, and then make sure it's not underpowered. Just go pure electric for such a small vehicle, relatively lengthwise, and this goes to driving efficiencies. Either you may have the e-rev approach, but we won't further talk about that here. So this smaller Megane has relevance for some buyers and some regions where the roads are smaller. Europe is classic. So we understand they're not going to let go of the Megane, we expect. For many of us, when we're looking at vehicles, thinking about what's the relevance of the Megane? I'm looking upwards from the Scenic. Scenic is a bit too small. I want the Scenic, but with a higher roof. And then I want a longer vehicle, a bigger vehicle, better crumple zone, better, longer front, and so on and so on. We're talking the 4,600, 4,700, and that's where so many of the sales would be. So again, I just question, why keep the Megane? But I recognise in certain markets massive volumes of sales with the smaller category. So we know if the numbers are really there, then it works. Just be careful. Is it the price or is it the size? Because if it's that across that market, the smaller vehicle costs a lot less, and that's what's really causing the sales to go there, then it's not that they want a smaller vehicle, they want a smaller price. So what if we provided a somewhat significantly bigger vehicle, and really suitably bigger, it just works better as a vehicle. So there's good reasons why it's bigger. Then be careful picking your width, and then because European roads, some of those ancient historical cities, the roads can be narrow, but then put in a very good turning circle system. Look at the Zika mix. Look what they did internally. So if you have a rear-wheel drive setup, the motor in the rear, compact, well laid out, down low, sort of laid on its side flat, so we have a maximum sort of space in the rear. Free up the front and do the Zika mix internal wheelhouse sizing and the way they dealt with the suspension parts and some of the articulating arm systems there. It gave them the space, and then they have spectacular turning circuit. You can give this treatment to every vehicle. So if we have that vehicle be a bit longer than Megane, I'm talking about the Megane while I've got this other vehicle on screen that's sort of it's the wrong way to do it. So do you get where I'm going with that? That you could have a lot of sales go to your vehicle at that price point because they get a lot more, they get a bigger vehicle, not inverted commas, a lot more inverted commas vehicle type of thing because it's got a bigger screen internal or something like this, all these sort of very peripheral fiddly little things. No, I mean it's a bigger vehicle. You've got a better vehicle. The other one was deficient. It's too small. They're not buying it. They don't want a small vehicle. Most people, they want a smaller dollar price. So we get in there and get a lot of those sales because we're in that category price-wise, but we're in a category 2 sizes bigger size-wise. That's what I'd be thinking about when I think about the Megane. strategizing for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So value purchase, how are we going to make our vehicles so efficiently? And then you could beat you could beat the competitors at that price point. And that's really where it's going to be at for most of the sales. Not that they want the smaller vehicle, they want the smaller price. So we can choose to plan and get in amongst that. Righto, now let's get back to this van. So overview was where I was. The Megane is the smallest one. We're redoing that. Then we've got the Scenic E-Tech. We're redoing that. We need a higher roof. And at the very least, you can have a low roof version and a high roof version, because if you think that's your big seller, it goes around the whole world and so on. You can do 2 roof heights, but it's either make the high roof version, and that's the only one we make, or you make the low roof one, the existing one, and the high roof one. You're missing a lot of sales that otherwise you could get, because it's got decent length. Many people that want the vehicle that's one size longer, but then you don't have them really considering the vehicle in the shortlist because it doesn't have enough headroom for them. But you could have the same length vehicle and put a higher roof on it, and then you'd be accessing a lot more sales. And to have 2 variants where the upper part is different, that's a relatively low cost way to bring in another vehicle into your lineup and access sales you otherwise would not have got. There's effects with having a longer vehicle. So some people don't want the longer, but then they want higher. And there's not endless variance here. There's wider, there's longer, and there's higher. We'll give it enough width to start with, a decent amount of length, and then you can have these 2 height variants. You'd be accessing sales that you otherwise would not have got. Think on that. And then it can just make the case for the cost of going there. Now, so overview: Megane, the Scenic, Megane redone, the Scenic redone with a high roof, and then this the 4,580 millimeter, 550 millimeter version, 580. How close is it to the Megane? Sorry, the Scenic. I have to check that. So we could be straddling the 4,700 millimeter length. Anyway, we've got maybe 4,650, 4,600, let's say, and 4,700. And these are sort of full SUV, but not pushing for a third row. Leave the third row to other people, broadly. Now, then there's the van here. So back to the van. I should have got myself organised to stay tightly on the van topic while I'm here. So this sits in the family there, and this van ends up doing 3. A commercial van converted subsequently to passenger vehicle format, so it ends up as a passenger vehicle. And we build it that way to be able to do that. And then we've got the built from the factory, fully fitted out as the passenger vehicle version, like Ford has the Ford Tornado version of their Courier and Connect and custom vans. Well, we're doing the same with this. So then this vehicle ends up getting huge numbers of sales because really best in class in terms of look, style, and we'll give it, make sure you don't underpower the van. We're going to not let that happen. Have the van be there properly powered and really lightweight the vehicle, and have it with all the strengths to do the cargo carrying. And then you get all the sales. Nobody's close to you on 10 lead parameters, and it's good looking to go with all of that. Recognise with vans, they do this sort of cladding up the front, and they think, oh, you've got to handle bumps and this sort of thing. These big, chunky, bulbous, sort of grotesque, almost exaggerated plastic bits wrapping around. Now, this is just marketing. Why are you smashing into anything? Yeah, I could drive a van and go here and stop many times a day and so on, but clearly the boss would be saying, don't smash the van into anything. I drive for 10 years my own passenger vehicle. Why? I don't smash into anything. Why would I suddenly get into a commercial van and smash into something? You shouldn't hit anything. And then something hitting you, well, it's exactly the same. Nobody should be hitting you, and if they hit you, get their insurance to fix it up. And then, for delivery vans, they're not in the shopping centre really a lot of the time, with some rogue trolley just starting to roll across the car park because the wind started it and smashing into your vehicle. So we know about that for passenger vehicles, but this is out doing the job, stop-start during the day, and parks on the side of the road. No shopping trolley is attacking it. So you don't need to uglify it with the big, chunky, exaggerated, grotesque plastic, grey plastic sort of cladding as really just a marketing trick. Don't do that. We say, we're making a van, it does the job, it's got all the functionality. We gave it plenty of strong performance. It's got lots of torque, of course, and it's fully electric, very efficient way to do it. And if we want to do something with the petrol, you go the e-rev version of it. And so Renault has a partnership with the Nissan company. So if Nissan continues to survive, they've got the e-power system, and they've already sort of worked out all that torque vectoring, and their next generation is quite efficient of that. And you share parts between Renault and Nissan, so that may be a useful thing to tap for your e-rev. They've basically made an e-rev, but chosen not to put in the extra battery with the e-power system. And we can easily, all the hard stuff, all the engineering complications and fine-tuning everything and having excellent force vectoring and a superb driving machine. Their task was, I've not driven the Nissan e-power system, but the next generation of the Qashqai, in a review by somebody who is a good judge, I don't have his name, but he really does have good judgment. So he said that the Qashqai comes up good result, the new Qashqai. So that's the e-power system that he drove. It was the e-power version. And you could use exactly that. Renault could, if they haven't got their own system fully mature yet, and just get that e-power system in your sharing agreement with Nissan, and then you add significant volume of battery, and you would then have an e-rev. They're just chosen to not do the e-rev. So you just have two things. You add a significant amount of battery, 30 kilowatts, 20 kilowatts. 25, maybe different sizes for whether it's the commercial van out of the factory or whether it's the passenger vehicle. If it's a passenger vehicle, you could be targeting, they do their day, they run about in the city, the vehicle just stays in the city, it picks up the kids from school, you go pick up the shopping and this sort of thing, and you're back to base and charge overnight. So don't pay for more battery and carry more battery than needed, because you just keep charging up every night. So that could be the 15 kilowatt hour pack with the plug-in charge system. And then for the commercial van, they're carrying typically more weight cargo, and that chews up the battery. And then they do sometimes longer run before they get back to base and fill up again. So you might push it up to 25. You might have a few sizes, 15, 20, and 25. And whether it's the for this e-rev version I'm talking, so for the passenger vehicle as well, they can choose any one of these. More battery, more cost, more battery, more mass, and so on. And how thin are you going to make the floor for packaging in this vehicle? And you just don't want to have it thicker and thicker. So there can be a limit we're looking to put on some of this. But then there's the fuller size, longer range version. It's the full passenger vehicle. We'll stop talking about all of that. It gets into more and more detail area. Let's get back to the sort of overview. So we've got these different variants of this exact same vehicle, and you would stand out in the crowd. Look at the Stellantis offerings with their vans in this equivalent sort of size, and it's ugly. They've not, you can argue back and forth, but it's not attractive. Now the Ford Courier is there, the new one, and they squared up the front, and it's got now better looks than they had previous. They've got a full electric one, but they came up significantly short. They came back and had another go at it. It came out better with their crash performance test. And then how narrow is it? It can be potentially too narrow. We could beat them on making our vehicle a bit wider. We can beat them by having a better turning circle with a wider vehicle. We can beat them in looks because the Courier looks to the order close, right in that ballpark of good of its type, and then we step in and we look even better. They have an underpowered vehicle, which 6 months of operation internally in the company, they could fix it. But in the meantime, we beat them by having a vehicle that's much better powered, with our Renault here van, replacement of the Kangoo, get rid of the Kangoo name. And then we've got the different battery pack sizes, and we get the e-rev and so on. So we're covering everything. So every sale that might have gone to the Courier or the Connect plug-in hybrid, a new product by them, whatever they're calling that one, we're beating them all. So we got Stellantis with their current vans totally covered. We got Ford covered in big wins in certain things. We're much better, and it just adds up. It's a no-brainer. You're going to buy the Renault Kangoo replacement, which we don't call Kangoo. Right. So now in this picture, these wheels are way too big. The wheelhouse is way too big. I talked about this in the immediate previous file. In all of the photos, for all these vehicle types, the wheel and wheelhouse is too big. It's not the proper size, because the start vehicle of the Scenic E-Tech that this photo was created by modifying off has this angled, the vehicle's on an angle in the original photo here. That means photo editing with just basic software. I'm using Paint, Microsoft, and you get warped end results. That's technical matter. So the true van here, the van for production would have much smaller wheelhouses and much smaller wheels, which is important for efficiency. And this again is where we beat the Ford Courier and such. We beat them in efficiency, and we do it in a number of ways, including the smaller wheels has a matching smaller wheelhouse. The look looks good. Looks good. And we go lighter wheel technology, and we go lighter brake systems inside components, and so goes the list. So our vehicle is much more efficient than the Stellantis offerings, and the Stellantis van is also the Toyota one, and the whole set of Stellantis ones, Citroen's version, Peugeot's version, the list goes on. So Vauxhall, and again the list goes on. There's the Stellantis van rebadged many times, and it's inferior in so many ways to what we put together here. And then we can beat the Ford Courier and Ford Connect. Our longer wheel version of this can be the beat of the Ford Connect, and so on. So you've got superb looks here from the Scenic. Not this photo I'm talking about. The end. This represents the sort of direction for the van. It's something to have up on screen, so we talk about the project. And you, 1-to-1, you have the same Scenic E-Tech, Renault Scenic E-Tech 2025 face on it. And the rear treatment around the paneling, it's a different format of vehicle, so where it's relevant, and so on. These wheels are good looking, and they have true aero with some air cooling function of the brakes and so on. They fit well with the white color of the vehicle, and so on and so on. If you've got perfect, just continue it across all the vehicles. We're just going to smaller wheels and smaller matching wheelhouse. And then we go to a lighter wheel technology, flow form, very lean design to further reduce the weight of the wheels. With the smaller wheels, we have smaller tires. Smaller tires are lighter. And the periphery is less far out, lighter, more efficient, and so on. It makes for a better driving machine. The person who's given the job of driving this commercial van around, they just love it. They say this van is spectacular. The driving dynamics, the steering feel, and it's caused by doing these 110 things right. This checklist, which I've mentioned, the 110, but so many of them, it's that it makes it lower cost to build, and it makes a better driving machine, and it makes more efficient, and it makes for better power rate ratio performance. and better handling, better cornering, better steering, softer on the brakes for the fleet, so you don't chew through the brake pads and brake rotors as fast, which is a major factor for fleet operators. And less crashes. The vehicle is able to avoid crashes better because the steering, handling, cornering, braking, and under adverse conditions. It's commercial operations. Rainy today, you're not staying in, you're out there on the roads. And this vehicle is safer. So built it right. Righto. So this is then the topic with the set of 5 vehicles, and this ends up being 3-in-1 type of thing. And lots of sales are for the taking here, but you're not going to get so many of those sales if you compromise the vehicle. How we beat the opposition is they build compromised vehicles. And then if you say, oh, but our vehicle is going to be so much better, but therefore it must be more expensive. Not so. It's called being smart. Bring me on team and we can beat them at their price point. But this vehicle that we provide is vastly superior. So if you match them in price and then you provide a vehicle that's vastly superior in multiple ways, really potent, important ways, spend the money on the right things, then, and not spend the money on things that are not the right thing to spend that much money on. So good judgment. Then it all works. You make your margin of profit, you've got volume of sales. And this humble sort of vehicle, this sort of base level start vehicle that the Kangoo is, we go make a much more attractive, much better Kangoo and get rid of the Kangoo name. And then the shaping of the vehicle can lend itself. I'll reserve this to last. I just scratched these photos subsequent here out, and I would like to spend a lot more time on it before I start putting something forward. But let's just have a look. A passenger vehicle. So if I just stretch that out, and I kept this in the mix because this is before I cleaned it up, but some of these sloped angles can give character to the vehicle. And that's interesting. You can have everything very military lines, straight, then it can get uninteresting. We know that, designers know that. So this sort of sweeping action could potentially be useful, and then explore it in the design work. I would look to that D-pillar and say, well, start curving it the other direction as we come up. You got it leaning back that way, and then do the reverse on the way up and go this way. I'd be looking to do that to, anyway, that's the things I'd be chasing if I didn't know that number so many hours of work on this editing. So then some of the edit I did, I tried to clean it up a bit, but then I lost the curvings in this time I spent. That D-pillar just got uninteresting, and it all got squared and boxed and so on. So it's neater but less interesting. Back to this one, it's very much unneat, but this points to certain things. I have that arcing back. It starts 2/3 below and then 1/3 above, and you make it start working its curve back. And this already has a bit of that sweep going on. And then make this compatible with that, and so on and so on. And then get the space in between here, and here correctly. That this space is extra wide. That's not right. And bring it all together, and something like this could be a start piece where we get something that's a very interesting full-on passenger vehicle version of the same platform that could be ending up attractive, and volumes of sales and so on. It ends up another alternate to the full sort of SUV 4,600 millimeter version or 4,700 millimeter version. Different format of vehicle, and some may prefer it. Right, so back to the van versus this. I see that the B-pillar was moved in that, and that might be a better spot for the B-pillar and the slope angle of the baseline of the windows. So transferring that onto this one, and where the door line is, might be one of those next edits I try. And just whether this line here is a little bit still heading downwards a little bit too much there. The whole thing needs to run a little bit more angle. These are all those perspective lines. So let's not talk about editing here. Let's go back to, got the idea, we know it. So nothing more needs to be talked about there. And it's about giving it the treatment. You have 150 smart ways to make the vehicle a value purchase success, and just take the market share there, massive wedge of the pie. Bring me on team, and I'll show you how to do it. It's just nth degree sort of approach, and just right judgment on what to spend the money on, and what really sells vehicles. Get rid of the advertising department, right? Just get rid of it. How so? Just make a spectacular vehicle. Just make a really good vehicle. You've got the looks. You've got sort of order of perfect look. It's spectacular. Don't waste it. Put it on all of your vehicles that are the passenger vehicles there. And then do a right job with each of them, and they will sell themselves. Stop wasting money on marketing and advertising and let's have a big screen or an extra big screen. This original Scenic here doesn't have an extra big screen, but the stuff they bang on about with vehicle sellers and when they're trying to sell vehicles, it goes back to when they're making vehicles. They can be spending the money on the wrong things in the manufacturing of vehicles. So there's much room for improvement. Again, bring me on team, and I'll get it all right, and it will affect the bottom line. It will be that nothing in the vehicle is a wrong spend. All of this is in the context that the Scenic, the Renault Scenic, is a spectacular success, internal and external in the design work. The cockpit is beautiful. So much praise to Renault. I'm talking in generalities here, and if one right thing was done, in a context of 1 to 50 ratio, and I'm talking about the 50 for every one, then fair play. If there's 50 fails for every one thing done right, then talking about the 50 fails is relevant. Stop doing all the fails. So what they got wrong with the Scenic E-Tech is the roof is too low, and the rear tailgate window is not useful, and so on and so on. So even the very successful in design work Renault Scenic has some significant major fails in it, which should not have been allowed to occur. So fix it up, which I'm talking about in this file and will be pointed to in design work in the series here. So this is looking at the van for this 5 vehicle series that is the one same look. It's the brand look, and that really good cockpit and so on internally, and those fabrics of the best versions of them. Put it in all of the vehicle set. You got a winner. You can succeed very well here, very easily, just by using what you've already got in the company, knowing what you've got, understanding it, know the value of it, and then go apply it across all of the vehicle categories, which means the end of some previous generations. You end at 2 or 3 years early. Certain other vehicle names, you might keep the name, but it's replaced. It's now that vehicle that you built is now the Scenic look, and so on and so on. So there's some radicalness in business operations there, but that's the smart move. That's the smart move, because you've got such a design winner. So I'll end the file here, and then look to somewhere over the next few days from when I load this file up, I'll be loading up the other ones in this series. So look for them and have a look at the other vehicle designs in this 5 vehicle set series. End of file.